They come into your life with a smile so sweet it could light up a room. Their words roll off their tongue smooth, polished, carefully chosen like notes in a melody. And you feel good when they speak because they don't just talk to you, they talk into you. They say things you've been longing to hear, things you've been waiting for someone to notice, someone to affirm. That's the first layer of their game. They don't come at you head on with lies that sound suspicious. They dress them up in charm. They craft them into compliments, promises, reassurances until you're nodding your head without realizing your guard is slipping. The truth is, everybody loves a sweet word. Who doesn't? We're human. We crave affirmation. We want to feel seen, respected, valued. But this is where the danger creeps in. The con artist understands your hunger, and they cook you a meal seasoned with flattery. They study what you need most, and they feed it back to you. If you've ever met someone who seems to say all the right things at the right time, too perfect, too smooth, you might not be dealing with authenticity. You might be standing face to face with manipulator. Now, don't get me wrong. Not every kind word is a lie. Genuine encouragement is real. But the difference is this: truth doesn't try to seduce you. Truth doesn't need to be rehearsed. A real person will tell you what you need to hear, even when it stings. A con artist, they only tell you what you want to hear because they're not after your growth. They're after your trust. Think about how it feels when someone praises you in a way that feels natural, honest, and balanced. There's usually depth to it. It's not exaggerated. It's not repeated like a broken record. It's not a constant flow of sugar. But when it's a con, you'll feel it. Deep down, your instincts whisper, this is too much too soon. That's your gut sounding the alarm, and you better not ignore it. You see, manipulation often hides inside sweetness. It's like a hook buried in bait. The fish sees the shine, feels the taste, but doesn't notice the danger until it's too late. That's how smooth talk works. It pulls you in, makes you comfortable, gets you leaning in closer. And by the time you realize you're being played, you're already tangled up in the net of their words. The sad part is many people blame themselves afterward. They say, how could I be so foolish? How could I not see it? But let me tell you, this isn't about foolishness. This isn't about being naive. This is about being human. Even the strongest minds can get caught by someone who knows how to tune their voice like an instrument. That's why awareness is key. You don't need to stop believing in people, but you do need to sharpen your discernment. Watch carefully for overuse of flattery. Watch for promises that come too quick, too easy. If someone you barely know is already showering you with words that sound like a dream, you need to pause, because dreams are meant to be lived slowly, step by step. And let's not forget, words are cheap. Anyone can say, I'll be there for you. Anyone can say, I've got your back. Anyone can say, I would never hurt you. But consistency is what makes those words true. If their words and actions don't walk side by side, their sweetness is just a mask designed to blind you while they set up their move. One of the greatest protections you can have is to test words with time. Time exposes everything. The con artist thrives in the short term, in the rush, in the haze of charm. But over time, cracks always appear, their script runs out, their mask slips, and suddenly, that sweetness doesn't taste so sweet anymore. So when you're listening to someone who seems too perfect, don't just listen with your ears, listen with your spirit. Feel the weight of their words. Do they feel grounded, or do they float like air, or do they sound rehearsed, or do they sound real? Do they give you space to think, or are they pressing you to believe? Pay attention, because your life, your peace, and your trust are far too valuable to hand over on the strength of sweet talk alone. Protect your heart, protect your mind, and most of all, protect your trust. Because when you know how to recognize the smooth talker, you take away their greatest weapon. And once you do that, nobody, no matter how sweet their words may sound, can ever play you like a fiddle again. Now, let me ask you, have you ever met someone who said all the right things, but something deep inside told you it wasn't real? Have you ever noticed how some people can't wait? They can't wait for you to think, can't wait for you to breathe, can't wait for you to sit with a decision. They want your answer right now, your commitment right now, your trust right now. That's not excitement, that's pressure. And pressure is the favorite tool of a con artist. They know if you take your time, if you step back and think clearly, you might see through the cracks in their story. So they rush you, they push you, they crowd you into a corner where the only thing you feel you can do is say yes. That's how they win. Think about it. How many bad choices in life happen in a hurry? How many regrets are born out of that little voice in your head that says, I should have slowed down? A con artist knows this better than anyone. They create urgency where there is none. They make it sound like the opportunity is slipping away, like you're about to miss the train of a lifetime. You've got to act now. If you don't decide today, it's gone. That's the language of manipulation. Real opportunities don't expire in 5 minutes. Real love doesn't need a deadline. Real trust doesn't need to be rushed. It's not just about money. It can be anything: relationships, jobs, favors, loyalty. They want your yes before you've had a chance to check the facts. They'll smile while they do it, make it sound like they're trying to help you. But the truth is, they're not helping you make a decision. They're stealing your ability to make a clear one. And here's the trick: Teen Speed disarms you. When you're rushed, you're not thinking with wisdom, you're thinking with emotion. They'll get your heart beating fast, stir up your excitement or fear. And in that moment, you're vulnerable. They don't want your reason, they want your reaction. That's how they trap you. Let's be real. Anything worth having is worth taking the time to think about. A house, a car, a relationship, a business deal, even a friendship. If someone respects you, they'll give you time. If someone values you, they'll let you breathe. If someone truly has your best interest at heart, they'll never rush you into something you're not ready for. But a con artist, they live in the rush, because the rush is where the truth stays hidden. I once heard someone say, time is the best detective. Give a lie long enough and it will expose itself. That's why they hate time. That's why they try to cut it short. They know if you take a night to think, you'll wake up with clearer eyes. They know if you talk it over with someone you trust, the holes will show. So they'll push you with urgency, trying to convince you that hesitation equals loss. But the only thing you lose by waiting is the chance to be fooled. And don't think it's always loud. Sometimes it's subtle. They'll say, I just need a quick favor. Can you just sign this real fast? Don't worry. We don't have to make it complicated. That's how they mask the pressure, by making it seem casual. But the outcome is the same. They want your yes without your thought. You have to remember this. If someone is pressuring you, they're protecting themselves, not you. They're protecting their scheme, their angle, their secret. Because once you slow down, once you pause, once you look deeper, you take away their power. And that pause, that breath, that moment of clarity, that's where your protection lies. So the next time you feel rushed, the next time you hear someone say, you have to decide right now, stop and ask yourself who really benefits from me being in a hurry. If it's not you, then that's all the answer you need. The truth doesn't run from time. Honesty is never afraid of patience. But a lie knows it can't stand still too long. That's why it runs. That's why it pushes. That's why it demands. And the moment you learn to slow down, you cut the strings they're trying to pull. Never let anyone force your yes when your spirit is still saying wait. Take your time, because your trust is not a race and your life is not a bargain to be rushed. And when you remember that, no one can ever pressure you into being played. Now, let me ask you, have you ever looked back at a rushed decision and thought, if I just waited one more day, things would have been different? There's something about a good story that pulls people in. A story can touch your emotions, paint pictures in your mind, make you feel connected to someone you've barely known. That's why stories are powerful, but that's also why they're dangerous in the wrong hands. A con artist knows how to spin a tale so convincing, so layered that you stop questioning the facts and start buying into the feeling. They don't just tell you words. They create a world for you to step into. And before you know it, you're walking through a story that never really happened. They might tell you about their struggles, painting themselves as the victim who fought against impossible odds. They'll tug at your sympathy, make you think, how could I not help someone who's been through that much? Or they'll cast themselves as the hero, the fighter, the one who's always rescuing others. They use these stories like camouflage, distracting you from who they really are. And the trick is, they know how to sprinkle just enough truth into the lie to make it believable. That's what makes it so hard to catch. Have you ever met someone who always has a dramatic story every time you talk to them? It's never something small. It's never something ordinary. There's always a crisis, always a tragedy, always a miracle. That's not coincidence. That's performance. They're not just sharing. They're selling. They're selling you on their version of reality, and the price is your trust. The dangerous thing is stories bypass logic. You don't stop to check the details. You just feel, and that's the goal. If they can get you feeling instead of thinking, they've already won. Because while your heart is moved, your mind is asleep. And that's the opening they need. It's not that telling a story is wrong. Everyone shares their journey. Everyone talks about their past. The difference is intent. A genuine person tells their story to connect, to relate, maybe even to heal. But a con artist tells their story to manipulate, to hook you, to make you believe something about them that isn't real. You'll notice, too, that their stories often don't line up. Details shift, timelines blur, characters change. But they tell it with such confidence, such emotion that you hesitate to question them. And if you do question, they'll add more layers, more drama, more words, until you feel guilty for doubting them. That's how they keep you inside the web. Let me tell you something. Truth is consistent. It doesn't need rehearsals. It doesn't need decoration. It stands on its own. But lies need a stage. They need an audience. They need constant energy to keep the performance alive. And that's why con artists are always performing, always talking, always spinning the next act of their play. Sometimes they'll even borrow other people's stories because it's not about authenticity. It's about effect. They'll still steal someone else's pain, someone else's victory, someone else's hardship, and make it their own. They're not worried about honor. They're worried about impact. And if the story makes you lower your guard, if the story makes you open your wallet, if the story makes you trust them blindly, then for them, it's a success. But here's the question you've got to ask yourself. Am I listening to connect? Or am I being drawn into a script? Does the story serve a purpose bigger than them? Or does it always circle back to how much they've suffered, how much they've achieved, how much they need? Pay attention to the direction of the story, because real stories build bridges, but fake stories build traps. The best way to test it is through silence. Let them talk. And don't feed the performance. Just listen and see if the story stands steady or if it wobbles when it doesn't get the reaction it's fishing for. A con artist relies on your gasps, your sympathy, your nods. Take that away and watch how quickly the act starts to fall apart. That's why it's so important to balance your heart with your head. Yes, feel the story, but also check the facts. Yes, listen with compassion, but also look for consistency. Don't be so hungry for connection that you mistake performance for truth, because the moment you learn to separate the two, you take away one of the greatest weapons they have. Remember this, the truth doesn't need to be dressed up, but a lie always does. And once you know the difference, no story, no matter how emotional or dramatic, can ever pull you off balance again. Now, let me ask you, have you ever heard a story so perfect, so dramatic, that it made you wonder if it was even real? It always feels good when someone makes you feel special. When somebody looks you in the eye and says, I feel like I've known you my whole life, or you're different, you're not like everybody else, it does something to the heart. It softens you. It makes you want to lean in and believe that maybe, just maybe, you've found a connection that's rare. And sometimes that's true. Sometimes people do click instantly. But when it comes to a con artist, that speed, that intensity, that rush to closeness, it's not connection, it's strategy. A con artist knows that trust takes time, and they don't want time. They don't want to wait for you to figure them out, for their flaws to surface, for their mask to slip. They want to get past your walls before you even know they're climbing. So they skip the steps. They use over familiarity like a key, walking straight into the rooms of your life without knocking. One day they're an acquaintance, the next they're acting like family. They tell you things people usually wait months or years to share, and in return, they expect you to match their vulnerability. That's how they pull you in. It feels flattering at first. Who doesn't like the idea of being chosen, being trusted, being elevated to an inner circle quickly? But that's the trap. They're not giving you closeness. They're manufacturing it. They're studying you, mirroring your words, your likes, your values, until you feel like you've found a reflection of yourself in them. That reflection is a lie. It's not who they are. It's who they need to be to gain your trust. You see, real relationships are built brick by brick. Friendships, partnerships, love, none of it happens overnight. You can meet someone and feel a spark, sure, but deep trust. That takes time. It takes shared experiences. It takes consistency. When someone tries to bypass that, when they want to go from stranger to confident in a heartbeat, you need to stop and ask why. Why are they rushing this? Why do they need me to feel close to them so fast? Because 9 times out of 10, that speed is a sign they're hiding something. Think about it like this. When a building goes up too fast, it's usually missing the foundation. It might look impressive for a while, but one strong wind, one shake, and it collapses. That's the kind of closeness a con artist builds. Shaky, fast, fragile. It's designed not to last, but to serve their purpose while it stands. And by the time it crumbles, they've already taken what they came for. They'll say things like, "You're the only one who understands me," or "I've never met anyone like you." It sounds romantic. It sounds meaningful, but really it's manipulation. They're trying to create exclusivity to make you feel chosen, so you'll ignore the warning signs. They'll tell you secrets, not real ones, but fabricated ones, just to make you feel like they've let you into the deepest parts of their soul. And before you know it, you're doing the same, handing over pieces of yourself that they can use later. And let's be honest, it works because it plays on something good inside of us. We want to trust. We want connection. We want to believe in instant bonds. But goodness without wisdom can be dangerous. You can be kind and still cautious. You can be open and still guarded, because trust that comes too easy can cost you everything. If you want to protect yourself, slow it down. Let people show you who they are over time. Watch if their words match their actions, not just for a week, but for months. Pay attention to whether their closeness is about mutual respect or about control. Real closeness doesn't demand. It doesn't pressure. It doesn't overwhelm. It grows naturally, steadily, honestly. A con artist thrives on speed because speed keeps you from thinking. But if you choose patience, if you refuse to let someone skip the steps, you'll see the truth come out. And once you see the truth, the mask loses its power. So when someone tries to rush into your life, calling you family before they've even earned the title of friend, remember this: real relationships don't need shortcuts. If it's real, it can wait. If it's real, it can grow. And if it can't wait, if it can't grow, it was never real in the first place. Now let me ask you, have you ever noticed how the ones who push too hard to get close are often the same ones who vanish the fastest? There comes a moment when charm doesn't work anymore. When the sweet words lose their shine, when the fast promises don't move you, when the dramatic stories don't touch your heart the way they used to. That's when a con artist changes their weapon. They shift from praise to pressure, from compliments to chains, and the chain they use most often is guilt. Guilt is powerful. It has a way of making you question yourself, doubt yourself, even punish yourself for simply protecting what belongs to you. A con artist knows this, and they play it like a master. If they can't win your trust by pulling you up, they'll try to win it by pulling you down. They'll make you feel selfish for saying no. They'll make you feel cold for setting a boundary. They'll make you believe that your refusal is cruelty. And if you're someone with a soft heart, this hits even harder because you care. You don't want to hurt people. You don't want to be the bad guy. You don't want to carry the weight of letting someone down. A con artist studies that part of you. They see your compassion and they twist it until it works against you. Suddenly, protecting yourself feels wrong. Suddenly, helping them feels like the only way to ease the pressure. It starts with small things. After all I've done for you, you can't do this one thing for me? If you really cared, you'd help me out? I thought you were different. I thought I could count on you. Do you see the pattern? It's not about truth. It's about emotion. They're not appealing to your logic. They're manipulating your kindness. And here's the reality: real love, real friendship, real partnership never demands through guilt. True connection doesn't force. It doesn't shame. It doesn't use your heart against you. When someone truly cares for you, they respect your boundaries. They respect your no. But a con artist, they fear your no, because your no is their defeat. So they wrap it in guilt until you can't tell the difference between being compassionate and being controlled. It's one of the oldest tricks in the book. People will say, if you leave, I don't know what I'll do. Or, after everything I shared with you, you owe me this much. They put themselves in the victim's seat, hoping you'll jump up and take the blame. But remember, this someone else's poor choices are not your responsibility to fix. Someone else's burdens are not yours to carry unless you choose to. And the moment you let guilt decide for you, you hand over your freedom. The truth is, guilt is a tool of control. It's not about love. It's not about fairness. It's about power. And once you see it that way, it loses its grip. When you recognize the pattern, when you hear those guilt-laden words and step back, instead of stepping in, you take away the power they're trying to hold over you. Let me put it this way. If someone can only keep you close by making you feel guilty, then they were never close to begin with. They were holding you hostage, not building a bond. And bonds built on guilt will always break because guilt is not strong enough to hold anything together. So you've got to learn to separate guilt from responsibility. You are responsible for your actions, your words, your choices. But you are not responsible for carrying the weight of someone else's manipulation. If someone wants to paint you as the villain for protecting your peace, let them paint, because the truth doesn't change just because they don't like it. The hardest part is this walking away without carrying their accusations with you. But strength is not measured by how much guilt you can absorb. Strength is measured by how firmly you can stand in your no without crumbling under their pressure. And when you do that, you'll see clearly what they were trying to hide. You'll see that guilt was never about you. It was always about them. So when someone tries to make you feel wrong for doing what's right for yourself, stand tall. Don't let your kindness be twisted into chains. Don't let your compassion be weaponized against you. Protecting yourself is not selfish. Setting boundaries is not cruelty. And saying no is not unkind. It's necessary. Now let me ask you, how many times have you said yes just to avoid the heavy weight of guilt, even when every part of you wanted to say no? One of the clearest signs that something isn't real is inconsistency. When words and actions don't walk hand in hand, when promises and reality live in two different worlds, that's when you need to pay attention. Because a con artist can dress up their words with all the shine in the world, but eventually their actions will expose the truth. At first, they'll come across as steady. They'll say all the right things, make you feel secure, give you the illusion of reliability. But if you watch closely, you'll notice the cracks. One day, they're full of energy, swearing loyalty, making promises about what they'll do for you. The next day, they disappear silent when you need them, nowhere to be found when it matters. That inconsistency isn't just forgetfulness. It's a sign that what they're saying doesn't line up with who they really are. The problem is many people excuse it. They say, oh, they're just busy, or maybe they forgot, or they had a lot going on. And sometimes, sure, life happens. But when inconsistency becomes a pattern, when the words keep flowing, but the actions keep falling short, you're not looking at bad timing. You're looking at deception. A con artist relies on your willingness to forgive the gaps. They want you to hold on to their words longer than you should. They want you to keep replaying what they promised in your mind while ignoring the proof in front of your eyes. And if you're someone who believes in giving people the benefit of the doubt, that's exactly the opening they'll use. They'll feed you more words when you start to question, more excuses when you start to doubt, more charm when you start to notice the gaps. But the truth is always the same. If someone's words and actions don't match, believe the actions. Think about it like a shadow. No matter what the light says, the shadow never lies. Actions are that shadow. They reveal the shape of who someone really is. Words can disguise, but actions over time always tell the story. If someone claims to respect you but constantly ignores your boundaries, their actions speak louder. If someone swears loyalty but vanishes when you need them most, their actions tell the truth. If someone says, you can trust me, but everything they do breaks that trust, their actions have already answered the question. And here's the danger: consistency keeps you off balance. When someone is hot one day and cold the next, it creates confusion. It makes you question yourself. You start wondering if maybe you're overreacting, maybe you're asking too much. Maybe the problem is you. That's the manipulation at work. They don't need to keep you happy all the time. They just need to keep you uncertain, because uncertainty keeps you holding on. You wait for the good version of them to come back, the one that kept their promises, the one that said all the right things. And while you're waiting, they keep taking. That's why clarity is so important. You've got to be willing to see the pattern without making excuses for it. You've got to be strong enough to say, I don't just listen to what you say, I watch what you do. Because people can fake words for a while, but they can't fake consistency. They can put on a performance, but they can't hold the mask forever. Eventually, who they really are will show, not in their speeches, but in their habits. The real test of character isn't how someone acts when it's easy, it's how they act when it's inconvenient. Anybody can show up once, anybody can say the right thing once. But consistency, day after day, choice after choice, that's where the truth lies. And if someone's truth keeps shifting, if their reliability keeps disappearing, then you have to face the reality that they're not who they say they are. You deserve people who match their words with action. You deserve people who don't leave you questioning what version of them will show up tomorrow. Life is too short to keep making excuses for someone who can't stand steady in the simple things, because the ones who can't be consistent in the small areas will never be consistent in the big ones. So when you see that pattern, when you notice the gap between what they say and what they do, don't ignore it. Don't cover it up with excuses. Don't let your hope blind you to the truth, because in that gap, you'll find their real intentions. And once you know that, you'll never fall for the performance again. Now, let me ask you, have you ever noticed how the people who speak the loudest about loyalty are often the first ones to vanish when you need them most? There's a weapon con artists use that's more dangerous than charm, more subtle than flattery, and more damaging than guilt. It's fear. Fear is their sharpest tool, because fear doesn't just touch your mind, it grips your whole body. It makes you act faster, think less, and surrender control before you even realize it. A con artist knows that if they can scare you, they can steer you. Fear doesn't always come dressed in threats. Sometimes it shows up as urgency. They'll tell you, you have to decide right now or the opportunity is gone forever. They'll make you believe that waiting even a moment means missing out on something life-changing. That urgency is designed to silence your wisdom, to shut down the part of you that wants to pause, to think, to weigh the truth. Because they know if you stop and think, you might see the holes in their story, so they push you to rush, because rushed decisions are careless decisions, and careless decisions are the ground where they thrive. Other times, fear comes wrapped in intimidation. They'll raise their voice, make you feel small, use their size, their status, or their presence to keep you from standing firm. They'll hint that if you don't comply, there'll be consequences. Maybe you'll lose a relationship, lose an opportunity, or face embarrassment. They know that fear can make even the strongest people fold if they believe the cost of standing tall is too high. But here's the truth. Anything that requires fear to control you is already corrupt. Real opportunities don't expire in seconds. Real love doesn't threaten you into compliance. Real respect doesn't intimidate. Fear is the currency of manipulators because they can't afford to deal in trust, loyalty, or honesty. Think about history. Think about every great deception. Fear was always the fuel. People were convinced to hand over power, to give up their rights, to silence their doubts, because fear had been planted in their hearts. Fear makes you doubt your strength. And when you doubt your strength, you give it away to someone else. A con artist knows this. They don't want to overpower you with truth. They want to overpower you with terror. And the worst part, they disguise fear as wisdom. They'll say, I'm only warning you because I care. They'll make their threat sound like protection. They'll convince you that they're saving you from disaster, when in reality, they're the disaster waiting to happen. That's why fear is so tricky. It often comes wearing a mask of concern. But you've got to remember, fear and wisdom are not the same thing. Wisdom empowers you. Fear paralyzes you. Wisdom gives you clarity. Fear clouds your vision. Wisdom strengthens your decisions. Fear steals them from you. And once you recognize the difference, fear loses its grip. The way to break free is simple, but not easy. You've got to slow down. Whenever fear rushes you, pause. Whenever intimidation rises up, breathe. Whenever someone tries to scare you into submission, step back and ask yourself, if this was really meant for me, would it need fear to keep me here? That one question can save you from a lifetime of regret, because fear-based control only works if you let it run unchecked. The moment you shine light on it, the moment you say, I see what you're doing, the game changes. A con artist can't stand in the face of courage. They can't survive in the presence of calm strength. Their whole act collapses when you refuse to be shaken. Life will always bring challenges, but those challenges aren't meant to scare you into weakness. They're meant to build you into strength. Don't confuse the voice of fear with the voice of truth. And don't hand over your freedom just because someone has learned how to play with your emotions. So I'll leave you with this. When fear shows up, don't run from it. Don't surrender to it. Look it straight in the eye, because the moment you face it, you take back the power it was trying to steal. Now let me ask you, how many times have you looked back and realized that the thing you once feared so deeply was nothing but a shadow trying to block your light?